Yeah. All I need is one mic. Yeah. All I need is one mic.
Welcome to One Mic and Daily DVR's deep dive into the Falcon and Winter Soldier. Today, we're going to be talking about season 1, episode 3, entitled Power Broker, directed again by Kari Skoglund, but this time written by Derek Kolstad, who is actually the writer of the film Nobody, which is in the theaters right now, with Bob Odenkirk, Better Call Saul, best show on TV. And he also wrote John Wick. So I think you can see a little bit of that John Wickiness happening. Whether you are watching on YouTube or listening to the podcast, please do leave a like, subscribe, and write us a review. Also, check out Mike's instant reaction, which we're going to talk about a little bit on the One Mic channel. Hit us back with feedback at dvrpodcast.com. Comment on this video at One Mic, or join the Daily DVR Facebook group, or on Twitter as well. We're going to be giving away our prize today, our Avengers pin. But before I do that, my name is Axel. We've got Mike, and we've also got Andy here. So why don't you guys say hello? Mike, how you doing?
I'm good, man. Ready to talk about what I thought was a pretty solid episode.
Yeah. Andy, welcome to the show. How you doing, pal, out there in Minnesota?
Well, thanks for having me, guys. Yeah, I'm excited to talk about this episode too. I've been loving the season so far, and it's going to be fun to talk about.
Nice. It's a
Did
pleasure.
Axel, did you say Minnesota like Jesse Ventura on purpose?
Yes, of course I did.
Okay, cool. Just checking.
That's my impersonation.
Oh, okay.
It was really more so from Fargo.
Oh, okay. Well, it sounded like Jesse Ventura.
Well, let's see. First off, I did want to get to some feedback stuff because before the podcast started, I did put everybody's name in a hat. I'm not going to do it here because I've tried doing that before and I'm always like holding things like this. But I do already know who the winner is of this Avengers pin. And first, though, I want to hear from their actual feedback. And first up, we actually had our good friend Glenn Ewing on the Twitter, wanted to fill us in that on last week's episode, I had mentioned that Isaiah Bradley had either a son or a grandson who answered the door. And that grandson has been identified for us by Glenn, and he is actually part of something much bigger. And I don't know, Mike, did you get to see Glenn's feedback about the Young Avengers?
No, I didn't see that. I saw someone else told us as well about the grandson, but I didn't see Glenn's feedback. Where was that at?
It's 41 Savage, which happens to be Delvin.
Oh, that was Delvin, yeah.
Who's going to be on the show next week. Yeah, he later, but his grandson, now, I don't want to say spoilers, but I don't know. This is in the comics, and as we know, everything is always like a remix. So we don't know that this is what's going to happen in the show, though Glenn had some other information that perhaps they are working on like a Young Avengers project. But later on, his grandson does become a superhero named Patriot. So that's kind of a cool nod there. And you'd think, why else would they have him answer the door?
Makes sense.
Do you know much about that, Andy? Are you up on the comics or what's going on?
My like the actual MCU and any like movie comic book things, I am very well steeped in DC or Marvel, it doesn't matter, or X-Men, Marvel, whatever the things are. But the actual comic book stuff, like the source origin, I know enough to be dangerous, and that's about it. I never really grew up with comic books growing up. It just wasn't something that my parents ever brought around. So a lot of this stuff, like even some of the things that show up in this episode that we're going to talk about, I've heard about. I'll do a little light Googling after I watch the episode, usually to kind of fill in, but most of it's a surprise to me when I hear it. So I kind of enjoy it that way. So
just a little light Googling.
Yeah, I like that term.
Well, you can get dangerous real quick and find out way too much stuff you don't want to know. So I'm very careful about where I look and that kind of thing. I've actually learned more in the last probably 6 months now that my son is getting into comic books. So he's getting all these little like Marvel 5-minute stories they're called that are for like 5 and 6-year-old kids.
Yeah.
And it's like their origin stories dumbed down. So I've actually learned a lot more from his 5-year-old books than I have from a lot of other stuff. So
That's pretty
awesome.
cool.
Well, you see, it's kind of funny too. And I mean, that's an interesting point because they do try to be, there's so many different properties, right? Whether it's the kids stuff, right? The MCU stuff, the comic book stuff, where they have to try to kind of maintain a certain story. And they do remix everything. So I think knowing about the comics is fun, and you can, and especially like when it comes to this, as Glenn filled us in on, there is a whole plan to do the Young Avengers that Kevin Feige has spoken about. And you know, I can actually, I retweeted it on my own, and I'll include a link to what Glenn provided for us on Twitter in the show notes. But even with that stuff, a lot of times, you know, they announce stuff and it's still in flux, you know, and things change. And once it happens, it's different. So it is cool to know that that's who this kid is. And there's a reason why he's there. And they may have some plans right now for him, how it's going to affect the rest of this series. I don't know. I don't know if he's going to show up again at the end. I mean, it would be kind of cool. I would be down for it.
Well, I think I read an interview recently with Feige where he said that, especially in their earlier ones, and he said they still do it, where they drop a lot of little things in as little threads, and they may not ever go back to them, but they have that hook there. So if they decide they want to, then they can. Kind of like in the first Spider-Man movie, Donald Glover had the bit role, and he becomes a major character in the comic books, from what I know. But they haven't really gone back to that bit at all. I think, if that makes sense, where they put a lot of little things in, then they may or may not come back to some of them. So.
Yeah, well, that's kind of, I think that's, to me, that's what has, in many respects, saves Marvel from being such a made by committee affair, is that and that was really illustrated by that interview I listened to with Malcolm Spellman, actually a couple different ones, and that I read, where he explains how they gave him he was really surprised by the amount of freedom that he got from Marvel, because they wanted to make it more fun. And I wonder, in a sense, if also, you know, they've been doing it so long, you know, you learn how to dealing with directors and their vision and their ideas and all the people involved is an art within itself, you know, and having, I think, one person at the head for so long through so many films really gives them the opportunity to break out. And something like this, where, hey, there's the kid, we've got this plan, but let's see how it works out and how people can fit in. And if anything, that sounds like great TV stuff too, right? Because at some point, Marvel has to move these shows into different genres of kids, teens, because these are more like family or kind of across the board. And that brings forth another piece of feedback we got from DJ Tim Hines. And I want to bring up this point. I'd like to hear your opinion on this, Mike, because like I said, part of the thing that got me back into a lot of this superhero stuff was you sharing a lot of stuff about watching it with your son. How would you describe this show? Is this a family show? Is this an adult show, a late teen show? How would you describe this show, Falcon and Winter Soldier, to someone?
I'd probably describe it as like a mesh of like a buddy action comedy kind of deal and like a spy thriller. But it's actually very in line with the tone of the movies, whereas like WandaVision was like very experimental almost. It felt like, let's try something different and see what that looks like. This feels like the movies on a smaller scale. Like it feels a lot like the movies. It's particularly this episode.
What do you think about though? Like on the as far as the range of like adult, family, PG-13. Like, what do you think around PG-13?
PG-13 is probably where I'd put it.
I was thinking too, because DJ Tim Hines, when I asked what about the scene from last week, well, the cop scene,
Mhm.
reply was kind of like, hey, it's a family show. They're trying to be more broad in their uh like exploration of things,
Mhm.
which I think is true to a certain extent, but I think they are at certain times trying to be a little bit more towards the older age of the PG-13. It's not always towards the 13. What I'm saying.
Yeah, and I wouldn't. I think calling it a family show is a pretty big stretch. This isn't something that I would say, and it's not even like it's. I wouldn't call it a family show because it's too vulgar or it's too violent or anything like that. It's just thematically, like I can't see like a 6-year-old getting into this. Like, oh man, this is totally good. Like I could see kids being bored out of their minds watching this. So like that's kind of why I wouldn't call it a family show, just because it's not one of those things where I feel like a Pixar movie where everybody can sit around the television and watch it and get something from it. I feel like kids aren't going to get too much out of this, especially when like this week, for instance, there wasn't like a Falcon flying through the sky in between mountains action scene. It was like really just like hand-to-hand combat stuff in this one and shooting. So yeah, I don't know. I think family show is a stretch, honestly.
What do you think, Ando?
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, the themes for one thing are a lot. I mean, government conspiracies and all this, and the what was it called? Yeah, repatriation council. That kids aren't going to understand. That's going to go way over their heads. And then, not to mention that like the violence is. I mean, it's like a John Wick light on this, really. Because I mean, at one point, Bucky impales a guy with a metal pipe through his shoulder, and there's headshots. And I'm like, Luke isn't right. My son isn't ready to watch this for another 8 or 9 years. I mean,
right.
I guarantee he sees the picture all the time. He's like, let's watch that. I'm like, no, we're not watching that. So, I mean, I'm not super concerned about that stuff, but it seems way more PG-13 and above to me.
Yeah, that's a good point, Ando. I guess because I had watched Godzilla last night, so I'm crush everything. I get, getting impaled, and that's true. Fair amount of violence, and especially Sharon Carter. She messed up a bunch of people in this episode.
Yeah,
it's a hand MMA type, not as violent as that, but type stuff.
Yeah.
She point to the violence level. So, all right. So our judgment is DJ Tim Hines. You are wrong. Show. We love you though, DJ Tim Hines. And by the way, did you all notice that DJ Tim Hines was the DJ in the club at Madripoor?
I didn't. I missed that. That explains Zemo's fist pump there. Fist pump. Yeah.
Style, dude. Yeah. DJ and I were on the set, and I was like, give me Jersey Shore. And I had to kind of go over with him how you do it. What it is it's not just a pump. You're really going around. You see what I'm trying to do here? It's going around, and then every once in a while you give it a good You see what I'm saying? So I don't know if everybody could see that so well on it, but there it is. Okay. Moving on. We had some good feedback from Gareth, our friend Gareth in the UK, a brilliant dude, great person. Hope the family is doing well, Gareth. I'm having fun with the show, but just as Carly was sounding somewhat sympathetic, like with Killmonger, you can understand his point of view. She blows up a bunch of innocent tied up security folk. Even her cohort looked shocked. She'd be more intriguing as an antagonist if she didn't go total bad girl. Also, Alan Sepinwall said something that is probably fair with how I rate this at the moment, the show. He put it on par with the stronger end of the Netflix Marvel shows. We've not had anything on a level with the one-take Daredevil prison fight, but I live in hope. All right. Thank you, Gareth. Let's start out talking about, we haven't really talked too much about the episode, but with Carly killing those security guards. Let's get into that a little bit, because really this episode was Bucky and Sam and Zemo's adventure, a little bit of Carly, a very little bit of John Walker and Lamar, right? That's
Yeah.
pretty much the whole episode. So we can talk about
And
the
Sharon
uh,
and Sharon too.
you're right. That's Sharon too, which is part. She had her own one little by herself. That's a good point, though, Andy, because that is kind of a separate thread to the episode. For this Kari stuff, what was your take on this, Mike?
It's funny that Gareth said that, because when I was watching it the first time and I was taking notes, I put something in my notes, something to the effect of, looks like I'm pretty right about the Flag Smashers kind of being good guys. And then when then when that scene happened, I put like an ellipsis and then put, or maybe not. But I do think, though, that I don't think anything changes regarding the Flag Smashers and how they're supposed to be perceived, because he made a good comparison with Killmonger, and I think that comparison is still apt. She's still, it seems to me, still trying to do something good, and it's one of those things where it's like, you have the right goals, you have the right purpose, but you go about it the wrong way. And that's kind of what Killmonger was doing, but Killmonger was doing it to an even farther degree. So like, I don't even think an argument can be made for Killmonger being a quote unquote good guy or trying to do good. Like, I don't think you can make that argument. He's too far gone. Same for Thanos. I think you could still kind of make that argument for Karli, just that she's currently, as of now, doing some stuff that you can't really justify. But I don't think she's gone as far as Killmonger yet, and I think it's still one of those things where she can be redeemed. Killmonger couldn't, but she could be redeemed. So I did find that to be an interesting turn for her character, just because of the fact that, one, we hadn't seen any of them do anything of that sort, and then also, like you said, the fact that the guy that she was with was kind of looking like, yo, what the fuck? There was people in there, so that shows that she's almost kind of going rogue, which is, I guess, the fact, if Karli is going rogue, then that further solidifies the theory that the Flag Smashers are trying to do good, that the group as a whole is like, hey, wait a minute, you're going too far now. So yeah, that's how I felt about that.
Point there, Mike. Yeah, his reaction kind of frames the group's intent.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think, Andy?
I'm kind of right with Mike on that. I mean, I think they showed she's turned a corner that you don't really come back from, and she might not be to the level Killmonger is yet, but I think she's on that path, and I'm guessing her followers have either just starting to figure it out or haven't figured it out yet. Her followers might be in it for the right reasons, but I don't know if she is. Or I shouldn't say that. I think she is in it for the right reasons, but she doesn't know the right way to fix the problems that she's trying to fix.
Yeah, I'm interested as to whether it was strictly motivated by the death of the woman who seemed to be her. I think it was her mom. Her name was, I have it in my notes here, Dari, I think it was.
I think I have it in my notes too. Oh, Danya Madani.
Thank you. Danya Madani, right. Yeah. Who we find out her name because John and Lamar talk about it and say that she died and she had visited her, and that was like her last known appearance or whatnot. But that's when we first see Karli, right? She visits with her. She has a conversation with the dude outside of the building that she's later going to blow up. This is the same building that, Mike, you referenced, has an X looking like X-Men in front of it, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Have the Madripoor connection, which we'll get to later. But they have a conversation where they talk about, can you believe we're here? We grew up, we kind of like, what choices did we have? Then the guy says, well, I guess I chose more money with mob security at Madripoor. So he was mob security in Madripoor. She says that she had nothing to return to after the blip, so she went to Madripoor. Obviously, they met there, came up with a plan to steal the serum. So they were working for the power broker, probably pre-stealing the serum from him and Nagel, right?
Could
But
be.
they also talk about the fact they want to help everybody and help all the kids that are displaced and like them, right? So they do have a good intent, like you're saying, Mike. But then when the woman dies, she seems to have a kind of change of heart. So what I'm thinking is it two things to me? Did she have this change, A, because her mom slash mentor or whoever died, right? And now she's like, this shit is serious, right? Or is it the serum? Because remember how talks about how he made the serum better, and it's now, it doesn't change you like it changed Steve or Bucky. It doesn't make you into some huge monster. You can look like a normal person and have this super soul abilities. But did it also do something to her mind where it's going to make her rage out in some ways? So,
That's an interesting question. I assumed that she was kind of lashing out after the death of this mom slash mentor, or mom or mentor. But I like the idea that the serum could be doing it, because we know that the new versions of the serum was made out of Isaiah's blood. And I don't know about you guys, he seemed a bit cranky to me. So it could be.
right. He said, I would
point.
isolate the serum in his blood, right? So, Mike, that's a fucking awesome idea, that this is like the Fly type shit or something, whereas they are Isaiah super soldiers. They're not original super soldiers. So they're almost, are they in a sense clones of Isaiah's generational grief and what happened to him? Do you see what I think we could be getting.
It's all about Bucky getting woke, man.
That's kind of a cool idea. It's Watchmen like stuff too, right? Like DNA has this, and then, but it also, I think in his case, the direct experience of being in prison for, what did he say, like 30 years or something like that.
Yep.
That's an interesting idea. So yeah, Gareth, that was kind of shocking, but I think there might be more to it. You know, I think that they're playing with that. So I think we've got something good there. As far as the this being on par with the Daredevil, I didn't watch. I think you watched, Andy? Did you watch Daredevil on Netflix?
I've seen some of it. I know the hallway fight he's referring to. I've seen that because that was pretty famous when it came out, but I didn't stick with it.
Yeah,
It just wasn't. I don't know. Personally, I think that from what I've seen of the Marvel Netflix stuff, I think the Marvel MCU stuff they're doing is on a much higher level. That's just from what I've seen of the Netflix stuff, anyways.
Yeah, I kind of agree with that. I've seen all 3 seasons of Daredevil, and I think the first season of Daredevil is the best singular season of any of those shows. The first season was pretty kick-ass, but I'm with Andy. I think this is a higher caliber of show than what was on the Netflix stuff. I wouldn't necessarily agree that it's on par with the Netflix shows. If we're gonna say is it on par with the best stuff, which I would put Daredevil season 1 is probably the best of the Marvel Netflix shows, and I think this is. Well, it's tough to judge too, because that shit was like 13 episodes or some shit, and we've seen like 3 of this, so it's kind of tough to compare. But I think at least on a cinematic level, like this is like cinema on television, whereas like this Daredevil was very, very grounded. Like that was like talk about shrinking down into like that's like in a neighborhood like where that whole thing takes place, not even like in a city. If that was Hell's Kitchen, that was just a neighborhood. So like it's a little different, but I get where he's coming from though, for sure.
Yeah, I think it's hard to make those kind of comparisons because so much of what this show is a part of is the meshing with the films because it's made by the film unit, right?
Mhm.
So that it makes it hard to judge when the look. I watched a bunch of the Netflix stuff. I think I watched the first season of the one with the who was the woman who was in the Bee in Apartment 13.
Oh, Jessica Jones.
Jessica, yep.
Because I remember her when she was on that sitcom. That was a
Yeah.
crazy.
She was also pretty good on Breaking Bad, Axel.
Yes. Oh, you're right. Thank you, Andy. She's been in a lot of stuff, man.
Yes.
But it just feels so different. But I see what Gareth is getting at from maybe that intensity, which is I think the Netflix shows were a bit more adult. You know?
Yes.
They had a more the violence was more visceral, the cursing, sexual situations, blah blah blah. So that I can see where Garrett's coming from.
I think the other thing it's hard to compare is that the MCU has got 10 years of history with other characters and other storylines they can reference, and they've done it in this episode. Those Netflix ones were building from scratch, so it's really hard to compare them either way, I think. But
that's true, Andy. It's it's not just the film unit, it's the writing too, where they can weave it into the overall story so seamlessly. It's a direct pickup, right? So the comparison is almost unfair, but I can see you have to kind of make it. But you know, that's the way you got to go when you in a couple of years people won't even remember the Netflix films, or they'll have already been made into part of the multiverse, right? We'll see.
That's
Like
what I was gonna say. Isn't the guy that played Daredevil been cast in one of the upcoming projects? I think he has.
Supposedly, yeah, he's supposed to be in the next Spider-Man.
there's so many rumors, like, and I think that that's cool too, because one of the fun things is to see if in a future Disney MCU TV show, will they attempt to make it look production wise like a Netflix show because including that character, right? I bet you they will. Like that, man. It's even like how Favreau tries to make the animals look like Star Wars animals, like it's good on in the Mandalorian, so it fits. I like that kind of thinking. We had a quick feedback from Ralph Apple, who said it's great, Agent 13. And Ralph, by the way, has a great check out invincipod.com because he's covering that cool new. And Mike is also covering it on one mic, Invincible.
Oh, yeah.
That is awesome.
It's a fun show.
I really like that. Ralph says it's great. Agent 13 needs to pick up some guns, though. What did you all think of? What was your Agent 13 impressions this episode, Mike?
Oh, I love hand-to-hand combat stuff. It's my jam in the Captain America movies in general. I kind of like that it's not all about big giant supervillains and having to do all kinds of crazy shit. It's about like hand-to-hand combat. Like my favorite action sequence in like all of the MCU is in Captain America Winter Soldier, and it's just a hand-to-hand fight between Cap and Bucky, but it's just so fucking cool. So like bringing in Sharon and having her, kind of, I mean, she did some shooting, but I mean, mostly it was kind of like, the shipyard scene pretty much. I thought it was super cool. And I was actually a little surprised at how violent it was. Like, I was like, oh, okay, we're getting busy out here. All right. So yeah, I liked it.
What'd you think, Andy?
I'm exactly the same way. I thought she was great in this. I think this episode again has shown the thing I love about these Marvel series so far is between her and then bringing back Zemo and Wanda and Vision from the first ones and Bucky and Sam, they are taking all of the characters in the movies that I thought were extremely underdeveloped, and they're making me care way more in a half an hour show or in a 10-minute stretch here than I ever did seeing her in Winter Soldier and Civil War. It was like, she's there, but she wasn't really that interesting. Mm-hmm. And already I think she's way more interesting than any of those movies did. And
Yeah.
they've done it over. If all the series are going to be like this, I'm even excited for the Hawkeye TV show now, which I wasn't at all. So
Yeah. Now she's the goddamn power broker.
I think she is too. That's when I heard your initial reaction, I thought I was thinking the same thing. Like, I can't wait to talk about that.
Okay, now I'm gonna tell. I'll let's get to that quickly. Like, so why she's here, who sent her there? Because I have a different idea. But I have this. The actress name is Emily Van Camp, right? And she first came on the scene in that ABC show Revenge. If
Oh
anyone.
yeah.
Which had a great first season and then went wah, 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 like every
Yep.
network show in the history of network shows. They're like, we got them. Now let's not write. Okay, beat the first season. But first of all, anytime she's on the screen, I'm happy because I get a little like goosebumps or glitter in my eyes. Very pretty. She's pretty. But I really thought this was an interesting kind of throw in. And yeah, I'm thinking, okay, the John Wick guy wrote this. Let's see. We got Bucky kicking ass in the bar, but really the real John Wick of it was her kicking ass in the containers. She got in one of the fake knife throws that John Wick does, where they just throw their hand and they add the knife in with CGI later. Like you could totally tell. She just like got up and went whoosh, and then the guy went whoo, and you were like, okay, that was cool. Messed up in the face too, right? Like she was bleeding, and it was kind of awesome, and I enjoyed it. And I'm gonna have to disagree with Ralph on this one. I'm glad she didn't have any guns because like Mike said, the hand-to-hand shit was way cooler. And I'm always a fan of less guns, more fighting in movies. One of my favorite, anytime I get an opportunity to talk about hand-to-hand combat in a film, I must talk about one of the craziest movies that has come out in the past 10 years. And I always get the name of it wrong. It's freaking Jean-Claude Van Damme. You know what I'm talking about, Andy? I
haven't seen it.
It's the oh man, here it go. I'm gonna go down. But as I'm looking up this movie, and then I can talk a little bit about this crazy movie. I'm gonna say, as far as who the power broker is, I do not think that it is Agent 13 Carter. I think, as a matter of fact, that she was sent by John Walker and Lamar. That's why she is there. They mentioned early in the episode that they're gonna remember when they go and they bust into the hideout where Carly was the week before, right? And they rough, like it looks like a hacker enclave.
Yeah.
Bits in John Walker's face and all mad. And then as they're walking out, Lamar's like, what are we going to do? We've been everywhere. We can't find her. And he says, we've got to get in with whatever. He uses some kind of phrase like, we've got to get in deeper or something, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think it's her. They're still tracking Sam and Bucky. They know that she wants to get her citizenship back and have her name cleared to come back into the US. So they her because she's at the bar in the very beginning of the episode. As soon as they walk in there, they walk up to the bar and she's at the end and she puts her hood there.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't.
That's why I think she might be the power broker, though. Okay. Because what happens immediately after you see that glimpse of her is when those big thugs come up and say, I got word on high, you're not supposed to be here. You're not welcome here. Mm-hmm. To me, that thinks she covered up and she texted somebody or told somebody and said, get your ass over there and go kick these guys out of here. And there's so many other different coincidences. Like she just happened to find that doctor all of a sudden. I mean, she was mad when Zemo killed the doctor. why would she care that Zemo kills that doctor?
And
doesn't
she
want the
found.
yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Andy.
No, continue.
Oh, I was gonna say, and she found the doctor off camera. Like they go into the shipping. Like, no, I'm sorry. They go into the shipping container or something. And she walks off, or I can't remember what it was, but she walks off and then comes back like, oh, they were in the club or something. Her little apartment / art studio / club. I don't know what the fuck that was.
Yeah, it was weird.
Yeah, she leaves and then comes back and is like, all right, I found him. Like, and okay.
She even tells Sam and Bucky to steer clear at one point. She's like, you guys need to just get out of here and steer clear out of here. Don't even do this anymore. I mean, and the way she was killing all the bounty hunters, that was pretty dang brutal. I mean, she was actually giving me kind of, I can't think of what the movie is. It's a James Bond movie, GoldenEye, with Sean Bean as the villain. And he's a former colleague of James Bond. I don't know if you guys have seen this one. And he ends up getting killed or disappears in the first half of the movie. And you find out he got so mad at the former people he was working with that he decides to go against them. And I just was getting those kind of Bond villain vibe. Now, obviously not as goofy as Bond is, but that kind of spy vibe thing going on.
Okay. You know what? There is also the point when she gets into the car at the very end and the woman opens the car door and she says, we've got a problem. And she's talking about Bucky, it seems like. You guys may have convinced me she was there. And the other thing is this. The last time we saw her wasn't it the Winter Soldier movie? Like when's the last time we saw her?
Well,
wasn't she in Civil War?
Yeah, she made a brief appearance in another one. It was probably Civil War. But yeah, she was mostly in Winter Soldier.
She's literally been there from like before the blip. She's been there for like 6-7 years.
Well,
yeah.
I mean, but I think there's just so much evidence to support either her being the power broker or working closely with the power broker. Because like Andy mentioned, the whole thing about being able to find that doctor, and then when he mentioned that, it reminded me that she found him off camera. The fact that she was even in Madripoor is obviously, that can't be a coincidence. The fact that the bounty went out on them the instant that they killed that what was her name, Selby or Selby. I'm sorry, the instant that Selby was killed, the bounty goes out on them. We don't even know who killed Selby, and no one on screen raised that question. Like Selby died and they were like, we got to get the fuck out of here. So
and you're right. And the way that it's shot, Selby is killed, then they all bust out, then she takes someone else out, then she appears. So trying to communicate to you, the one who took Selby out, maybe not, but she doesn't make reference to it. And they keep on going. So you're right, I am digging the spy intrigue that's going on here, like where's she coming from, but something that's still, I just think the scenes with John and Lamar where they keep on referencing someone on the inside, that they know something, and then there's a second scene with them later where they reference it again and talk a little bit about Carly again. I think that we're both right, and she's playing both sides, and she's in with the power broker, or is the power broker, but she's also been in communication with Lamar and John Walker and is using that information too. That would be definitely a spy type thing to happen in a show where
go ahead, finish. Sorry. Is Carly also tied in with the power broker? Because at the end there, near the end of the episode, when she said, well, her buddy says the power broker's coming after us, and she basically says we don't have to worry about him or worry about the power broker.
Power broker is not going to want to come after them now. She thinks now that Nagel's dead, the power broker is going to want to work with them to get those last 20 things. She said something like he'll be salivating, or he'll be something begging us.
Yep, you're right. I forgot about that line.
Yeah, well, I do think that there's definitely, like I indicated before, Carly and her buddy lived in Madripoor, and I think that they were working for the power broker, or maybe they were working for Nagel, right? One is Carly was like helping him out in the lab or doing something else, and then they hatched this plan and stole the stuff. For another reason, which is to create this flag smasher organization to help people. But that's interesting. Oh, hey, I remember the movie, and this is worth talking about on this show.
Okay.
If you love, and Mike, have you ever seen Universal Soldier: Day of Reckoning?
Is that a sequel to the original one?
This is a 2012 sequel.
Okay, nope.
Yeah, it was straight to video, I think, too, wasn't it?
Yes, it's got Jean-Claude Van Damme and Dolph Lundgren, but that is not the star. The star of the film is Scott Adkins. And Scott Adkins, you may know, appeared in... No, nobody? No taker?
Soldier?
Scott Adkins?
He was in one of them, wasn't he?
He was in Civil War and Winter Soldier.
Civil War. Okay, that's what I was thinking was Winter Soldier, but yeah.
One of the tough guys in that movie, I believe. Maybe I got this wrong, but he's been in the MCU. I know.
I think it is Winter Soldier.
You know what? I'm wrong about this. He may have been one of Thanos's more humanoid-like goons, but he's been in the MCU. But this guy is an amazing action hero star. I don't know why he didn't get bigger, but he's in a ton of shit. And I think he has a history in fighting. And this movie, if you love hand-to-hand combat in a movie, this is one of the greatest hand-to-hand combat, crazy action movies you will ever see in your life. Universal Soldier: Day of Reckoning, directed by John Hyams, who was the famous Peter Hyams' son. And it is a crazy, weird sequel to the series of Universal Soldier, but you don't need to know anything about Universal Soldier. You don't need to know shit, because this movie just starts out and it is the craze. I watched this once at like 2:00 in the morning on Showtime or something, and I was blown the fuck away.
Wow.
Hand-to-hand action scenes, and Scott Adkins is an amazing combatant. And Mike, you should, like, as soon as this podcast is over, find this movie and watch it, because I know you love fighting and you'll love this movie. And anybody listening, I'm so glad I got a chance to rave about it. All right, let's keep on moving on. We had a lot of great feedback. I think that was it for the feedback. Do you have any other feedback that you want to share with us, Mike? Did we get any on your videos or anything that you want to share?
I had something up, but it wasn't anything like feedback for reading on the show. Like, it was just kind of like, yeah, and like that video. Yeah, I agree with that thing you said.
Like, I agree. Okay, well, you agree with Mike. Good job. We agree with that. First feedback I agree with. But some awesome feedback too, a patron and longtime listener and friend. What's up, buddy? And he responded to the first episode. We didn't get a chance to get into this. This is to Mike on Twitter. This is probably my favorite 50 minutes of the MCU thus far, and felt just like the stuff that happens in between battles and big events in 80s, 90s comics. Character work and word building, but presented via the medium of prestige television. And Mackie and Stan are superb. I just wanted to read that because I think we all agree with this, but I think that was a beautiful way of writing that.
Oh yeah, I liked that comment when I saw it. Yeah.
Mark is the man. Knows what's up. And he has a good knowledge of this stuff and enjoys it as well. And that's a great way to say it. This is prestige TV. They're rocking it out. All right, let's do the giveaway. I already pulled it, so I'm just going to announce it. It's a very special person won this pin. And when I pulled this name, I was like, come on, this is too perfect, ladies and gentlemen. Glenn is the winner.
Congrats, Glenn.
Glenn, you won this Avengers pin from cufflinks.com. I'm sending it out to you, buddy. On Twitter or hit me with an email. You're the man. You can wear this and take a picture of it, and we'll share it on Twitter. And I'll also frame it and put it up in my living room. But you won, Glenn, and thank you. And we got more stuff to give away. We got socks, we got a tie, we got awesome stuff that's going to be given away soon. So just give us your feedback. And that was great. I like the way we kind of talked about the show through some feedback.
Yeah,
Covered a lot of it. Let's see if was there anything else that anybody else wanted to talk? We talked a good bit about Carly and what we thought was going on. We talked about Agent 13 and what we thought was going on with her. And I'm liking more and more the idea of an old school switcheroo where she's kind of working both sides. Because I like her too, and I hope that they have plans to bring her back more often.
yeah. I think it's.
Mentioned,
Oh, no, you go ahead, Andy.
Sorry. You finish that thought first. I was going to change subject.
So I was going to say that another thing that I noticed about the power broker and that whole situation is that no one knows who this is, and they consistently refer to them as a man. He this, him that, yada yada. And I just think again, another thing to add onto the pile of it being Sharon, of reasons it could be Sharon, because it's like, oh, wouldn't that be cool to have not only a good guy turned bad guy, but like the person that they've been referring to as a man the whole time is actually a woman. Like I could see them doing something like that. Like every time I think about it, I think of another reason why it's Sharon. The only thing that throws me off is my head is so full of the reasons that it's her. I can't even remember the one reason I had that it wasn't.
I actually had that same thing written down in my notes here. I totally agree with. I think it's a giant misdirect because, like, when Zemo talks about her to Sam and Bucky, I wrote it down. He said he only knows him by reputation, and it seems like it's an obvious misdirect to me. But
yes,
I might be wrong. But it's something about the way that they keep saying he and him, and it just seems too. I don't know. Maybe I watch too much TV.
Yeah,
that's definitely what it is. I think your average viewer, 9 out of 10 viewers, is not going to be making the connections that the three of us are making right now. Like, because it's just not. It's one of those things that you pick up from watching so much stuff and seeing these sorts of things unveiled that you could see the signs a mile away. So we could still be wrong, but like. Just the fact that we're noticing these things, it is because we watch too much shit.
That's because I told you I think that I thought that Sharon was coming from New Cap and Lamar, and my secondary theory on who the power broker is I come building up from last week, and it's very tiny little bit of evidence, tiny bit of evidence that it is I think the guy's name was Yoshi, the older Japanese gentleman.
Oh yeah,
whose son was killed. Now, when Zemo steals Bucky's little book, and he also, Mike, you were right, that's Cap's book.
That's the name Zemo brings up, isn't it? The Japanese guy.
He mentions the Japanese guy. That's
I like that idea.
Okay.
But wouldn't that mean that Bucky would have had to have been living in Madripoor?
Well, they don't. Maybe it's his son and he's not dead. And the reason why Zemo picked up on that name is because he recognized it. And he says, oh, your list of people you hurt when you were the Winter Soldier. Now, didn't Zemo have to track down everyone in the Winter Soldier program? So he knows everybody. So one of those names was that dude's son. So he wasn't there at the wrong place at the wrong time. He was actually the reason he was there.
Yeah, we still don't know why he was there, and we're gonna find out.
Yeah.
The old guy and the son are the power broker, and maybe he's not even in Madrip. You know, they say he's there.
Sure.
Okay, so that's my secondary theory.
I like that theory a lot.
I like that better than your John and Battlestar theory.
Me too.
I don't call him whatever his name is. I call him Battlestar just because I hate that fucking name. I really do.
Damn, so we're gonna need a little bit more than Lamar.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hoskins. 'Cause Hoskins is a fun name because you kind of like the Huskins. Like that is kind of hard to say. All right, let's talk about Madripoor. A lot of people have pointed out this plays a large part in the X-Men universe and is a island where a lot of shit went down, but also Wolverine lived there for a certain period of time. And actually the bar that Wolverine hung out at, and he was actually called something different. I can't, because I remember reading this in the comics and then I reread it, but he had like an eye patch or something. He was like Eye Patch Wolverine, different name. But the bar that he goes to, which I think was called like the White Princess or something.
The
It
Princess
was
Bar.
Princess something, yeah.
Bar,
The Princess Bar. I think that's what I wrote down here.
Mhm.
They
So
really quickly. I just wanted to talk a little bit about the entrance and coming in and like bridge, and you see this like all this like this city lit up. I thought it was pretty cool. I thought it's hard to pull off like dens of inequity, like kind of like bad guy places, and they did a good thing, which they didn't go overboard. It wasn't like every time they cut somebody was slapping somebody or they were sniffing cocaine or they what I mean, or like there were all these like scantily clad women. They didn't go that direction, so it remained pretty cool. What did you, Andy, what did you think? You talked about liking it a lot in your intro
yeah,
video. What did you
loved it. I love the whole thing because it seemed, I mean, you say even though it was definitely had John Wick feel to it, or some other Future City things, I loved it. It was so different than most of what we've seen in the MCU, and it was one of those times where like the city is an actual character, which I always love that kind of thing. Like in Blade Runner or something like that, where the city of LA is the character. This felt like an actual character. Like this town, or this country is a big thing, and all. I don't have a lot to say about it because I don't know much of the X-Men comics. I knew the Wolverine thing and like what you had said on my light Googling that I was talking about before. But I love the city. I love the whole vibe. I love the one end is ultra rich, the other end is ultra poor and lawless, and I love the whole thing. I hope we spend a lot more time here.
Yeah, it was pretty direct. High town and low town, right? Like,
Yeah.
rich ass motherfuckers and poor folk. What are you going to?
Yeah, it wasn't subtle, but I was fine with that.
Yeah, that's it was like they were able to pull off a cliche in a sense, and that's kind of difficult. And when they first got there, I thought it was very smart to put them on that bridge because it gave you this feeling that you were entering like a Wakanda, like a special Marvel place. Like that was
like it gave it a good scope, I thought.
yeah, and it was almost like the reverse of the Rainbow Bridge, right?
Oh, yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It was kind of like the dark. It was like modern and cold. It was, I don't know. I just thought they did a pretty decent, cool job. And then the whole bar scenes, and I mean, some of it came off. It could have went cheesy, and I could see someone saying it was a little cheesy, but I thought that it came off pretty well. And also adding the fun and the banter to it lightens the mood, so it doesn't turn into some Zack Snyder thing where they're taking themselves so seriously. You know what I mean? That you're like, come on, dude, we get it already. It was kind of fun. So
You had to get your Zack Snyder dig in there, didn't you?
fuck that. I can't wait for that zombie movie he's gonna do, dude. I love it. I love zombies.
Yeah, that one does look cool.
Can you believe this motherfucker had the gall to make Justice League in black and white as if it wasn't fucking gray enough already? What the fuck's wrong with him?
That was almost like a joke. I gotta think somewhere along the line, the guy's got to have a sense of humor. You know what I mean? It has to be a joke. But
that's what I thought about the 4:3 aspect ratio too. I don't know why. I get that it's supposed to be an IMAX thing, but who the hell's going to an IMAX theater? I don't get it.
It doesn't even, honestly, I don't even know how that makes sense because it could have been larger like it does. But
There was you mentioned it there briefly. There was in that bar scene. There was one thing I really got annoyed's not the right word, but when you're going into an important meeting, who doesn't silence their damn cell phone? That really was like, are you kidding?
Yeah, it was a little, but that's what I mean. It's like, they still, and that's why I think back to what you said, like, oh, it's kind of a family show. So I still think family show is the right thing, is that they still do kind of cliche superhero-ish, like they bring back, it's just like, okay, how about when they're firing their guns and then Bucky is like, what are you doing over there? And he's like, I'm behind something, just like in every action movie. Right? Like, that is what I mean. Like, I like that they make reference, they do things like that, and it's part of the plot, but then they also make fun of it too.
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure.
Charm of the MCU, and I think bringing that into the show was funny, but I think that overall they did a pretty good job, and all those scenes inside Madripoor were pretty cool. Though I will have to say, when they did, it was a little jarring because you see it all at night, and then when they go to the meet Nagel, they're like near the dock and it's all bright outside. And for a second, I was like, why are they in LA again? That was the only thing that kind of threw me. But otherwise, what else did we have? Was there anything else that because I think we kind of covered a lot of their journey in there. The one thing I wanted to talk about was with you guys is what Zemo, and a little bit of just backtracking and remembering that where he came from, what his motivations were, where you think he stands, why he's on this mission. Like, just, I'd like to hear from you guys just a little bit of Andy, if you don't mind starting out. What do you think of kind of like what his motivations are, what he's really doing there?
Well, I've been trying to think about that since I finished it, because he's playing so, I mean, part of the time he's doing like this mustache twirling villain thing, which I think is an act. But I think he's still on the want to destroy the Avengers and destroy other people. I mean, destroy the superhero thing. I think that's what his goals have changed since War. I mean, he's a big question mark for me. I like the stuff we had with him, but he was a lot, because I watched Civil War recently, and this version of him is a lot different than the one we had in Civil War. I mean, this one's cracking jokes, and the other one, I mean, he was so serious in Civil War most of the time, and it was, I guess I don't have a good idea of where his character is going. Besides the other, I mean, some of the other light reading that I've done is he's becomes he in some comics is a big time supervillain. I mean, maybe he'll just turn into an even bigger villain. I don't know. I thought the thing with him grabbing the mask and doing that little thing was interesting, because I know his mask is a big thing in the comics.
Right, like he became it had this kind of draw to him that was actually, that reminded me, that was almost like DC-esque, where it was like Batman looks at the cowl and has like all this psychological torment,
Mm-hmm.
like he felt all the torment of losing his family and everything that happened to him when he puts that mask on, and it was like he was being torn back and forth. I like what you said about how he acts like a different character, because you're totally right. That was a little weird to me because I love the actor, so I accepted it.
Yeah.
You know,
I do too.
Thinking back, and I watched some clips too, I was like, yeah, this was a really much more demented and maniacal character when we first got.
I mean, he had the dead guy in the bathroom for a while and all that stuff in one of those two movies. I mean, stuff that was a lot more twist. And he's more like ultra rich European guy now, which seems a little different than what we had seen before. Because I'd never believed before. I mean, I was never led to believe he was an ultra wealthy guy. I mean, it still fits with what happens, but I never really got that idea from him in the original, the first few times we saw him. So I'm not sure where they're going with him. And like I say, I love Daniel Bruhl too. He's an awesome actor. So I'm just fine with it. I'm going with it. It doesn't bother me. It's just, I don't have a handle on where his character is going.
What do you think, Mike?
Yeah, I'm also kind of in the boat of I don't really know what their plan is. I do kind of still lean toward what we were saying last week about him kind of being like a Hannibal Lecter kind of character. I still think that is on the board, but the only thing that bothers me, and this kind of ties in with what Andy said, is that none of this feels loyal to the character itself, even the previous versions of the character that we've seen. So, and I know like Baron Zemo is kind of like one of those, like I have a ridiculously long, complex, cool ass plan where it's like, you're not going to realize what I was planning on doing until it's already done 10 years from now or some shit like that. Like that's kind of how Baron Zemo operates. So like this feels like it's either what we were saying, like him being Hannibal Lecter, which to me is not loyal to the character, or this is just part of some long con. And ultimately at the end of the day, he's got some kind of fucking plan that we're not going to find out about until it's already successful. And what makes me lean toward that is the fact that he killed that scientist. And I don't know why he would do that. Like out of the blue, just like, yeah, boom, dead. And he came in there with that intention because they briefly show a shot of him searching underneath the table, almost as if he knew that there's no almost, because you don't just randomly go into rooms and search under tables for guns. He knew that there would be a gun there, or he was searching for presumably a gun that was going to be there. So like he either had some knowledge that there was going to be a gun there, or at least acknowledge the possibility. And, if I find it, I'm killing this guy. And what reason would he have to do that? He doesn't have one, especially if he just got out of prison. Like if we took everything at face value, he has no reason, but he did it. So there is a reason. We just don't know what it is. And that fits in with the Baron Zemo character. So I that's why I'm kind of like, he's probably still up to something, but I just really liked our Hannibal Lecter idea from last week.
Yeah,
they even leaned into it at the beginning of this episode with him in the plexiglass thing,
right? Yeah,
I mean, that was right out of Silence of the Lambs. That was the first thing I thought of.
Yeah,
we didn't really even talk much about the breakout and the whole. And I love that they pulled the whole, like Ocean's 13 thing where they talk about the plot and then it's happening.
Yes, I thought that was great.
The prison breakout was lots of fun. I thought it was super cool. I just like also what I'm enjoying in this show is I like when things happen off camera. I like when something happens and then someone explains it, or it just keeps. That is a function of a lot of espionage action spy movies. They can't show you everything. And I think that this was really cool, the way they decided to break him out like that and just have Sam totally not know what the hell was happening. And then he's there and then they're off.
That really reminded me of in the Ant-Man movies with Michael Peña's character when he does those long rambling things that are always really fun and explain. You know what I'm talking about. It's some of the best scenes in the Ant-Man movies, I think. But
yeah, that was fun. You're right. That's a good like little homage to themselves there, Andy, and they did that as well.
Oh, speaking of, I'm sorry, Axel. Oh, okay. Speaking of homage to themselves, I really liked. Well, for one, I thought this episode had a more humor than the previous two. Starting with that scene, I thought that was funny. How he presented it as like, let me tell you a hypothetical. He's like, what did you do? And then they start cutting with like. The prison breakout. I thought that was funny. But when you say paying homage to themselves, I don't know if this was something that resonated with you guys at the time you saw it. But when Sam gets in the car and says, at the end, it says, you're not going to move your seat up, are you? And he's like, nope. Like that was paying homage to yourself to the fullest, because for me, the scene that's referencing was the moment where I was like, oh, these two got something special. And the fact that they referenced that I don't think it's coincidence. I feel like they thought too at that time that these two got something special. So I thought that was really cool.
Yeah, that was the scene with Sharon Carter when that happened.
Yep.
When Sharon and Steve were, because they do the whole goofy look, smile thing after they see him making out with Sharon.
Yep.
That is, and actually, Malcolm Spellman mentions that in one of the interviews, that was kind of, when they would think back, that was like the impetus of kind of their relationship and kind of the way they get along with each other. And I think it also plays into kind of Steve as like this kind of father figure in a sense, you know, friend and mentor to them, and then what role Sharon may play in it too. And maybe you guys are right, and it's going to be to break their hearts and be the power broker. But the power broker might be Zemo. Maybe Zemo's the power broker, and the reason he's doing this stuff, because I didn't get a chance to talk a little bit more about Zemo too. And I do think, I agree with you all. I think there's more going on here. And I agree with Andy, your initial reaction, which is, I think he still has the same impetus, the same reason for existing in this universe, which is to take them down because of the wrongs that were done to him. But there was a weird little scene here, and maybe I'm reading into things too much, but when the climax in the lab happened and they shot that rocket launcher into it and how they survived, that was crazy. I thought it was the whole lab.
I was going to bring this up. I'm glad you brought this up.
The whole lab hidden inside the container units was awesome too, because first of all, I love like houses built out of container units. I think that's cool. But I thought that was really neat, and secretive and spy. But they keep on showing the vials vibrating, and then they show it twice, and it looks like one is missing. They show it.
And I thought some of them looked like they were steaming too, like actually steaming out into the air.
They were, okay, that's another thing. I like that too. Is, were they exposed to something in the air?
That's what I'm wondering. Yeah.
Or did Zemo steal some of the serum? And I think in Marvel fashion of flipping everything, and everybody is sometimes, like you're saying, like he's really playing kind of the Loki role here, right? Like where kind of jokey, and then sometimes he can be an insane person who will kill you. Maybe maybe in relation to what Andy said, which is he later becomes a bigger villain. Maybe they're going to have him. He's like, if you can't beat him, join him and become a super soldier himself, or try to make his own again. Because you could see when he was doing, they were in front of Selby and he was like touching Bucky's face. And when he tried to give him the words when he first entered, he has this certain like addiction maybe to controlling another person like that. And he kind of wants his little pet back. Even when he says, I'll do him, he liked that feeling of control. So I definitely think, yeah, something else is going on with Zemo. Well, let's kind of wrap it up. We're getting to the end here. The last scene we have is Sharon goes off. She gets in, the woman opens the door for her. We don't know she's still in Madripoor. We saw Carly go off after blowing up the building. And then Bucky, Sam, and Zemo are in the plane. And there is a nice little conversation where Sam and Bucky talk about Sam giving up the shield, and they talk about stealing it again, which is like the third time they've talked about stealing the shield. Mm-hmm. So they might try to steal the shield. But Ben says, I should have destroyed it. And I thought that was an interesting point. What did you think about that, Mike? Because I thought that in a fast-paced episode, this is a return back to some of the themes we had in the first two episodes about Sam taking the shield.
Yeah, no, I full disclosure, I didn't think about it too deeply, but I did note the fact that he said I should have destroyed it, because it's one of those things where, like, you know, look at all what this thing has caused. Like, look at what all he's even said something like that to that effect, like what's happened because of this hunk of metal or something like that. So the idea of destroying it, I don't know. I haven't really thought too much about that, to be honest. I don't know. I'm curious as to why he would feel that way. Because I kind of get the idea of not wanting to have it yourself, but the idea of destroying it, like I don't know. It seems a little bit of an overreaction to me, and it also seems like a very difficult task to destroy it. But yeah, man, I don't have much to add to this part of the conversation. Sorry.
You have anything, Andy?
Well, I don't think they're going to destroy the shield, but I also still think there's a very good chance that Winter Soldier ends up with the shield and not Bucky, or not excuse me,
Sam.
not Bucky, not Sam.
No, I think I think that'll happen too.
I mean, I think I can't remember if I sent it into you last week or not. I don't think you guys talked about it, but like there was a scene in last week's episode where Bucky jumps out of the plane and crashes and burns and crashes through all the trees and into the forest. Steve has done that 3 or 4 times in the movies where he jumps out with no parachute, lands perfectly. I think that was them legitimately telling us that Bucky is not ready for the shield, but he's trying to make himself worthy for the shield. And tonight, in this episode, it talks about how the shield means so much to him and all. I think I still think it could go either way, but I think there's a strong chance that this whole series is about Bucky's redemption and being the guy that carries the shield. I could be completely wrong on that, but I just get these little things every once in a while that make me think that's a chance. I don't think they'll destroy it at all.
Yeah, I'm with you. I don't think they'll destroy it, and I also think that Bucky will probably end up with it. They've both been held it in the comics, but I do think that Bucky is probably going to end up with it. And I think that scene that you mentioned where he jumped out of the plane, that like I didn't think of this at the time. I only thought of it when you said it just now. But Steve has done that and landed on his shield in order to make sure that he stays safe. So yeah.
Yeah, I can see that too, and I kind of like that because I like the idea of Sam doing his own thing and creating something new. I'm a fan of that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I think it seems to me that's what Sam desires. He doesn't, right? Like he didn't take the shield.
Yeah. Yep.
And I think the thing about destroying it and questioning and all that, I thought too that was a little bit of a stretch because it's a little, I guess, you see the shield as a symbol, blah, blah, blah. But it's also like, hey, man, you're in a sense also talking about whether or not you want to be a superhero, right? So perhaps what Sam is coming to the conclusion, destroying the shield is in a sense destroying the idea of being a superhero and then recreating it in a way that's comfortable for him, right? Not being a soldier, not being part of the military, or not being associated with this, that, or the other thing, but being associated with what's important to him personally. And maybe that'll have a little bit more to do with where he comes from, his family, his sister, you know what I mean? Like there's a reason we got that stuff in the show. We got a little bit of his sister this episode too. We very briefly. But yeah, I kind of I agree with you guys. I kind of hope Bucky takes the shield because I think it makes more sense too. Like that was Cap's buddy. You know what I'm saying? Like, I mean, that's Bucky, like, and I do think Falcon and Sam is his own thing. He really has to find himself within this universe and not be the second, sidekick.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
And there's also some out of show meta knowledge is that Sebastian Stan auditioned for Steve Rogers and supposedly was crushed so he didn't get the role. So that even adds to a whole nother layer of.
Well, they made
I guess that's why he got Bucky. So
they made the great casting.
Yeah.
Again. All right, cool. And the end of the episode is they arrive in Latvia. We don't know why they're there. Zemo just says, I've got someone who can help us. Then Bucky sees the little Wakandan bead things. I don't remember what they're called, the little balls. And he meets up with, I believe it's pronounced Io, right?
Mm-hmm.
I believe so. Yep.
Who is the actress Florence Kasamba. And she is Io, and she is there to kill Zemo, because guess what? Zemo killed the king. We all remember that. And he tried to blame it on Bucky. So they still have that connection there. And I think it's cool that Bucky gets to have this little conversation. I hope we see more of it. 2 questions for you. I'll hit you up, Mike, first. One, why do you think they're back in Latvia? Who do you think that Zemo is taking them to? And what did you think about Io showing up?
Answer to question 1. I have no fucking clue. I had no idea. This is completely random, kind of like side note. I was kind of freaking out about it because another show that I watched or that I've completed, Gamora, has a spin-off movie that they did that kind of covers the life of one of the characters on the show. And the entire movie takes place not just in Latvia, but specifically in Riga, where they're at. I'm like, and I watched the movie the day before I watched that episode. So like, that was really weird for me to see Riga, Latvia in 2 consecutive days in 2 entirely different properties. But I have no idea who they're there to find. And I mean, obviously we're not supposed to. I mean, you could probably guess if you have like some kind of crazy comic knowledge, but I don't. So I don't know who they're there to see. And I was actually going to ask you guys what you thought about Io being there, because just for one, you again, just like Sharon in Madripoor, the Dora Milaje isn't just hanging out in Latvia and it's like, oh shit, Zemo's here. That tells me that they've been tracking Zemo ever since he got out of the prison. So I'm curious as to, I thought that was kind of cool that they were there, because I like when they merge, and they did this with WandaVision, when they merge multiple properties into one thing. So like in WandaVision, when what's his name? Evan Peters showed up. Yeah. I thought that was really cool. And then, with the Wakanda, being integrated into this, I thought that was really cool. But I'm more so curious as to now, this is now a new problem. Like what impact are they going to have on the story going forward when they're there to catch someone who 2 Avengers are using for help? Like, so are they now going to butt heads with the Dora Milaje? Like, I don't know, but I'm excited to see how that plays out.
What do you think, Ando?
Well, as far as Latvia, I'm the same way. I have no idea why they're there. I mean, he said he had a place there, didn't he? Didn't Zemo say he had a place there that they were going to stay at or something?
Yeah, but we've also saw Carly there too.
Oh, that's right. That's where, isn't that where the place with the big X on the door was? Oh, that's Lithuania. Sorry.
Well, no, I think that was it. I think that's where she blew up the thing.
Yeah.
So I think it's somewhere.
No, I wrote it down. That's Lithuania, where the big X was on the door.
Okay, so I got.
I mean, I knew all these Eastern European countries. I knew I had to write it down because I would mess it up.
Very cold.
The stuff with Wakanda, I just watching the episode, I thought that it might happen in this episode because there was a couple offhand references to Wakanda earlier episode, and then I think as far as the tracking him, I think how that actually happened was in that bar scene when Winter Soldier starts fucking people up. You see a whole bunch of bar goers with their cell phone cameras out, recording it. So I'm guessing Wakanda with high tech stuff, monitoring all that stuff, and I'm sure they have Google alerts or whatever the hell they have in Wakanda.
They did a little. I saw it.
Yeah, that's why I'm assuming that's how they found out he was. It just took at the end of the episode to get there. I do have a question for you guys though. Do you think there's any chance? I looked up the filming dates and it would be possible. Do you think Chadwick Boseman will show up in this? Nemo did kill his father.
Ooh, I don't know, man.
I'm not ready for that. I need that tonight.
I don't know. I just thought it was a cool idea. I thought it was a cool idea.
No, it is a
'Cause
cool
I
idea.
would-
I'm like, I'd fucking die if that happened. Like, I just like collapse in my chair. Like, oh my god.
Well, because I looked up the filming dates, and they finished most of filming in March of 2020, and he died in September. They came
Yeah.
back or he died in August. Excuse me. They finished a little bit after he died, but most of filming was completed in March. So
You bring up a good
I just keep thinking, and might seem cheap, but he killed his dad. Why wouldn't he go? And he's got the most badass outfit. I mean, he could do it. Why wouldn't he come himself? But maybe he's busy. I don't know. I just thought it would be it's a cool little thing if it would happen.
they did shoot, and this was supposed to air before WandaVision original
Yep.
plan. So you're right about that. My only thing, Andy, is that I just don't feel like they could have ever kept that under wraps. You know,
Probably not.
and
But I mean, it is Disney. They kept Mark Hamill under wraps.
I was just about to say that they kept Mark Hamill under wraps, so they could do anything.
hey, it would totally make sense, buddy. It would
And
totally
Baby Yoda.
make sense.
Yeah.
And
I'm not thinking it happened. I just thought it was a fun thing to think about.
that would be pretty cool, man. Well, you heard it here first, people. That the title of the YouTube video, Mike. You'll get more like
yeah. 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 Chadwick Boseman confirmed. Yeah.
I might do something like that, man.
end up on like some people making fun of us. These
Yeah. Well, what else is new?
all right, well, let's wrap it up there. This has been great. I mean, I have no idea why they're there. I thought it might be connected to Carly, but I got my Eastern European countries mixed up. I think having an opposition to Zemo show up is a good thing for the plot, because I think it heightens the tension and it reminds us again of how dangerous he is and the things he did in the past, which again, I think this episode kind of glossed over, but that was okay because it was fun. But I think that's cool. I look forward to next week's episode. We're going to have Delvin is going to come on with us and talk about next week's episode. I want to thank Andy for coming on. I want to thank everybody who gave us feedback. Andy, do you have any final words for us, my friend?
Not really. This was a lot of fun. I'm enjoying the season. I can't wait to hear the rest of your guys' shows and watch the rest of your guys' shows for the season.
Nice. Mike, any final words?
Nope. Chadwick Boseman, episode 4. I'm totally on board.
There
I'm
we go.
totally not like I can't unhype myself now. Like not like this is happening in my head, and now I can't be like,
Sorry,
oh,
Mike.
It's like now I'm watching for Chadwick Boseman now in these last 3 episodes, and he's probably not going to show up, and I'm going to sit there the whole time like, oh, this is where he's going to show up. Oh, here comes Black Panther. It's like it's not going to happen. But I can't unhype myself, so here we are.
You're first, Kevin Feige. Oh, wait a second. I just got a call. Hold on.
Yeah.
What? Oh, Kevin. Okay. All right. I'll announce it. All right. We can safely announce that Chadwick Boseman will be appearing here on this YouTube podcast channel of people who don't know anybody in the Marvel business. Thank you, everybody, for listening. Thank you all for downloading. Subscribe, like this video on One Mic. Give us a review on iTunes or Stitcher or Spotify or pod app catcher thing, whatever you do. You all are wonderful and amazing. Thank you, Andy, for your time. You made it, baby. You made it through the podcast. He had his second shot.
Through.
Vaccinated man. I'm getting vaccinated soon. We're going to be a fully vaccinated podcast soon enough. We'll catch you next time for episode 4 of Falcon and Winter Soldier. Peace out.
Peace.